not only do people, they'll sit on a jury and say, hey, the law says you're not allowed to have that substance. They don't even know what they're saying. They literally don't know what they're saying when they say the law. If you ask them, well, what are you talking about? Where did it come from? Well, government. Okay, what the heck is government? Like, what's the origin of this scribble that you think makes it okay to put someone in a cage for having a substance or committing any other victimless, quote-unquote, crime? And eventually they realize, well, it's stuff politicians make up. But they don't talk like that. They talk as if it's, some holy thing descending from on high, the law. Like, who are you? And you can see it in the terminology they use on a daily basis. They brag about being a law-abiding taxpayer, and they say, you think you're above the law? And I say, absolutely I'm above the law. Everybody's above the law. It's almost impossible to be below the law if by law you mean the politician scribbles. Because the politician scribbles legitimize way more violence and theft than the vast majority of things that they declare to be crimes. And so the sad part is when there's a jury that says, yeah, we'll say guilty because he got caught with pot, or he got caught, driving without a piece of paper that says he's allowed to, or whatever victimless, quote-unquote, crime, what they don't understand is they're the ones helping the crime. The real crime, when you're talking about natural law, you just put a guy in a cage. That's violence.
Exactly.
But they have their view is so backwards that, and I got a front row seat of this. I got 12 complete state-worshipping buffoons to say I should be in a cage for telling them that they were being defrauded by their own quote-unquote government.
What it really comes down to, Larken, is they're not even saying you're above the law as if they're trying to say to you, you think that you can do immoral things. They're saying, I, as a slave, am talking to the other slaves saying, how dare you think that you're not a slave? That's what they're really saying. They're saying you think you're above slavery, which is the arbitrary dictates of a psychopath telling other people how they should or should not behave if they're not hurting anybody else. So that's what that person is really saying. They're not openly saying it like you say. They dance around it. But what they're really saying to you is, I'm a happy little slave on the plantation, and I'm saying to another slave who doesn't want to be a slave, how dare you not want to be a slave?
Absolutely. That's absolutely exactly what it is. One of the things I read inside was the autobiography of Frederick Douglass, who was the open, obvious kind of slave that we all call slavery. And he described how a lot of the fellow slaves had that mentality. They believed they were supposed to be slaves, and they viewed a runaway slave as a thief for trying to steal himself from his master, and they would really view them with contempt.
Wow.
And that's exactly America today.
That's about as deep into the mindset of slavery as anybody could possibly get. That's amazing.
And it was really creepy to read, but then it dawned on me, well, of course, we would like to think of them as, the slaves as all thinking this is horrible and bad and wrong, and first chance I get, I'm going to run away. But if they thought that, they would have, because, they, even with all the quote-unquote law enforcers making slavery continue, they still outnumbered. They could still outrun them. The problem was they were enslaved inside their own heads just as much or more so than enslaved in body. And if you actually believe that you're supposed to be a slave, and you do if you take pride in being a law-abiding taxpayer, because what that means is I do what the politicians tell me and I give them my money. If you take pride in that, you are taking pride in being the property of politicians. And as long as you have that mentality, you're a slave forever, and you won't be able to understand why anybody else wouldn't be that. And you can see it. I saw it in my own jury. They couldn't fathom how another human being, never mind the legal reasons, would ever not want to pay homage to the master. and say, yes, master, here's a bunch of what I earned, and, here's the fruits of my labor, here's a piece of my life. And they literally couldn't imagine how any human being who was good wouldn't bow the way they do. So they said guilty, and I got to be in a cage for a year.
Like you said, it's a complete twisting onto its head of true morality. True morality is actually standing up for your own rights and respecting the boundaries of other people's rights. And what they're saying is you're immoral if you don't want to have your rights transgressed upon by others.
Right. And in my case, what was really frustrating, and I admit I had a hard time not being bitter and angry about it, is what I did. I didn't get caught doing something. I set out to have the trial. I was there to tell those 12 people, you are being defrauded by your own government. And so I was there telling them, you're being victimized by an actual crime, like with a victim, you. And their response, because they've been so indoctrinated into authoritarianism, was, well, you're bad. You're bad for pointing out to us that somebody's robbing us, and for trying to not get robbed yourself. I mean, it's just again, in their daily lives, people aren't this insane. It's only when it comes to politics and government. Because if I came out and said, oh, somebody stole my car last week, nobody would think it would be rational for me to then go around to other people and say, I hate you, they didn't steal your car.
Exactly.
That's not a rational response.
It's
but that's what Americans think of